Hi everybody, welcome to this week's edition of Property Chat. And this week we've had everything in the office from gazumping to gazundering. It's been one of those weeks where everything's happened. We've had people wanting to fight on the survey and reduce the price drastically where our vendors are not prepared to do so. And, we're quite confident to say to buyers, look, the market's not dead. If you pitch a price realistically, things are still selling. So the fact that you've had a survey done doesn't give you the automatic right to come and gazunder and try and undercut the vendor just because you feel you're in a position where you can now move that vendor and sort of blackmail them into reducing their price. We don't advocate this procedure, and any buyers that do it, we take delight in actually defending our vendor's price and saying, look, we'll just put it back on the market if it comes to that, because there's nothing worse than that scenario. Now, in the news this week, canal boats. According to the Daily Mail, living on a canal boat is surging in popularity. Not surprising, is it, with a housing crisis, and it's a cheap way to find somewhere affordable to live. The number of owners has doubled within a decade. They're finding it the only affordable way to get a foot on the ladder. A man who recently bought one said that he spent $20,000 on a barge, and living on a narrow boat is fun, he said, and he spent the money on doing it up to add value so that he can sell it on. And then guess what he's going to do? Sell the narrow boat and use that money then to get back into the bricks and mortar property market. Good for him. I hope it works out. In other news, fewer homes earn more than their owners. This is latest analysis which suggests that the proportion of homes earning more than their owners is shrinking as house price growth continues to slow down. The Halifax says the average rise in house price over the last 2 years has outstripped earnings in 8% of local authority districts. This compares to 18% in 2017 and 31% in 2016, where we saw a big jump. The average UK house price has increased by $15,000 over the past 2 years, while the average take-home pay has been $46,000. In other news, what we've been finding is, as far as lettings is concerned, lots of new tenants applying, and a lot of landlords now not wanting the multi-occupancy, worried about the new HMO rules, that is the house in multiple occupation rules, where before, if you had 5 or more tenants over 2 stories, you weren't a house in multiple occupation. Now lots of landlords are anxious not to flout that rule, because now the number of stories in the building is irrelevant. If you've got 5 or more tenants living under the same household, you are a house in multiple occupation, and this can cause you massive complications, and you are breaking the law. So you really need to be careful, landlords, that your tenants aren't subletting and you haven't got more than 5 tenants in your property. Otherwise, you need to get the required licenses. Now, there's been a large increase in the number of low deposit mortgages as well. There's a boom, really, targeting those struggling to buy their first home. There are now 405 different mortgages available to would-be home buyers with a 5% deposit. This is according to research from Moneyfacts. 10 years ago, 3 deals were available. That's quite shocking, isn't it? And now there are hundreds. What we've also seen is rates come down quite sharply as well, suggesting banks are trying to lure first-time buyers back in with smaller savings. Now on to the new Section 21 rules. Evicting tenants could cost up to £1,000. This is the Residential Landlords Association, which has warned that the cost for landlords to evict tenants could rise by another £1,000 if the government ends no-fault evictions without overhauling alternatives. The government have launched a consultation on scrapping Section 21. This is the 2-month eviction notices that a landlord can serve for any reason, and instead it plans to overhaul housing law and simplify Section 8 notices. So hopefully what it will mean is that they may speed up the procedure for Section 8, and then the net effect will frankly be nil. But it's a soundbite, isn't it? Saying to tenants, we're going to scrap Section 21. But they have to be really careful, because in doing this, they're scaring landlords. And I think it shows a direction of travel on behalf of this government, that they want to show that they're being tough on landlords. Unfortunately, without specifying a reason, Section 21 allows landlords to regain possession. And it's been proven time and time again that most landlords don't evict for no reason. They use the no-fault route because it's the simplest route of assuring that they get possession in the end. And when tenants are asked to leave under Section 21, there is a clear reason in 90% of cases. On average, tenants live in a property for more than 4 years, and in 90% of cases, tenancies are ended by the tenant. 90% of cases. Seems contrary, doesn't it, to what you hear? Now, buying a home instead of renting can potentially have huge cost savings in the long run. Analysis by Mortgage Brokers Private Finance compared the cost of renting a property average with the cost of buying a £350,000 property on the same street. In Brent Cross this was. Assuming rent rises of 2.5%, which I'd say is probably They're likely to be higher than that. The renter would have paid $900,000 over a 40-year period. By contrast, a buyer would have spent £574,000, assuming their mortgages stayed about the same. However, mortgage borrowers are likely to see their costs reduce over time, meaning the true figure would be even lower. So homeowners would also benefit from house price rises as well, assuming a small growth rate of, say, 1.7%. Over 40 years, the buyer would be £100,000 in profit. So, as usual, renters lose, buyers win. And I think that's what the government's trying to attack. Now, in other news, a good takeaway nearby is a top priority for 42% of Brits when deciding where to live, a survey claims. A quarter of 16 to 34-year-olds admit they would spend £1,000 more on a property if there was a good takeaway nearby. This is research by Uber Eats, surprise, surprise. It's worth sellers having local information about takeaways is what they're suggesting. So that's it for this week's property news. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time. Holiday next week, off to Spain, yes. So apologies for the lack of a report next week. We'll come back with a double briefing on what's going on in the UK housing market and everything you need to know. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time. Take care.